So why do I put Saw 7 or Saw 3D over Saw 5? Partially because, yeah, I felt that the ending wasn't as despicable as Saw 5, and to me, as a Saw film, like, it defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
If you don't have a fantastically twisted ending, well, it doesn't feel like it's Saw. Uh, so that was weak, and I guess not as part of much of a bias from, like a fan's perspective, but the fact that they did get Sean Patrick Flannery to play the main B plot guy. I mean, that was kind of cool, right? Like, for all the Boondocks fans out there. I mean, heck yeah, dudes. So for me, yeah, definitely Saw 3D. It was a weaker one, but I do feel that it was like slightly better than Saw 5, but it's definitely not saying too much.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna move on.
All right, cool. All right, so Earl, what is your fifth or your third least favorite?
Okay, perfect. So we're actually not gonna go for third least favorite because I think everything after, or like before, or like whatever way you want to put it, apart from Saw 5 and Saw 3D, are very, very solid movies.
Yeah.
They're like, this is like, I think you put those other two aside, and you've got really the cream of the crop that really forms the Saw series and really makes this series addictive.
Yeah,
as it is.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a look at this one, and I think the next one is really subjective, but for me, my number 5 is actually Saw 3. I will go with this because, and the number one reason is because Saw 3 is really where they introduced the contradiction for what Saw games or Saw traps were, and that's to allow your victims to save themselves.
Yeah.
You can't save yourself when you're tied into the rack. You can't save yourself when you're trained up in a freezer. You can't save yourself when your neck is chained up to the bottom of a pig slaughtering tank.
Yeah, it's exactly like Saw 3 innovated that. Like, it had, like, exactly like you said, Earl. It has, like, like other people are in Saw traps, but there's a person that needs to get them out for them because, like you said, they're helpless, right? They can't get themselves out. So, yeah, like, Saw 3 innovated that, and I thought it was a really neat idea. And that's actually a really good excuse, too, of getting a bunch of Saw traps in one film.
Yeah, but, so, you like that idea?
Yes, I do like it, yes.
Okay, that's interesting, because, I'm trying to suggest that I wasn't a fan of that because it defeated the original philosophy of Saw, if you will.
Yeah, no, it's true. I was thinking that too. Like, how are people supposed to like face death and like see if they have what it takes to survive if someone's doing it for them? Like,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking too.
Because I think they wanted to put the purpose is that it was all for the greater good of turning this really sick man who's obviously he had trouble letting go of his past demons, but they were trying to fix him, and they said, "Oh, it's all for the greater good."
Yeah.
But I think you could have just as easily created an under layer for the other victims to give them also a reason that they have to fight out of their traps, or they have to convince this guy, "Why should you kill me? Why shouldn't you?"
Yeah, exactly.
They really didn't do that. They were kind of written in as just victims and pawns for a greater game, kind of like let's take the main character
Jeff.
Jeff, what he's
yes.
falling out, and he finally gets to confront his killer. It was kind of a shame because when he confronts his killer, we just say, "Guy, oh yeah, he kind of beat himself up because he accidentally ran over a kid."
Yeah.
Well, you didn't really go into the fact that he might have had a gripe. Going in is that, oh yeah, I've also destroyed my life trying to get over the fact that I've killed a kid, like I had to quit medical school. But they didn't do any of that. And that's what made it really, it kind of made it disappointing to say that, yeah, they're all just victims, that this guy has the choice of killing them or allowing himself less pain.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of disappointing in that sense. And for me, that's really like the main detractor as to why I put it in as my number 5 favorite, especially because it is kind of the conclusion to Leia Whannell's trilogy, which I'm not taking anything away from, because Leia Whannell really had a great imagination and creative writing skill when it came to writing his first 3 movies.
Yeah.
So let's go off to the positives now. A-Plot was really really cool because this was the first one that, well, not the first one, but they fused the A plot and the B plot extremely well to the point where they had a double twist at the end of this one. I remember there
Yeah.
was a point where they had the Jeff Denton character, and we had no idea how he really tied into the main story. He's just like, oh yeah, he found some guy. He's a test subject, but they ended up fusing with the A plot doctor who was supposed to keep John Kramer or Jigsaw alive as long as possible. And they found out, oh yeah, it's actually your wife. So when Amanda shot poor Lynn, that's why Jeff basically went on a rampage and went like, oh, I'll kill you because, you know, it's vendetta. And
Yeah,
obviously the great
exactly.
thing about the Jeff character is that he was a richly vindictive man who was, there was almost no way of saving him. I mean, I thought the coolest thing about the Jeff Denton character was that even though he survived a Saw game, he was a guy who's like, oh yeah, I've been through the whole thing and I didn't die.
Yeah.
Everyone around him died, sure, but the fact that he didn't die, but he never learned anything.
Yeah.
For me, that was almost an appropriate way to end the Leia Whannell's trilogy because it showed, no, Leia, your Jigsaw's solution is broken.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't work. It maybe works, say, 50, if maybe 35% of the time. And that they also kind of go on to that with, I think, Saw 6 and Saw 7 with that poor girl who loses her arm and she doesn't understand what she was supposed to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are a couple characters to that, but like I think Jeff, who doesn't really come out and say it like internally as much as she did, but he comes on. It's more of a philosophical thing, and you go into it. It's like, oh yeah, that was really smart when you really kind of interpret the movie further. So yeah, the A plot was really cool in the sense that you kind of got to see Shawnee Smith, and she really got to take the stage. In Saw 1, obviously she really just had this first scene. Saw 2, they made her a lot bigger, and she wasn't involved into the main twist. And Saw 3, it was really when you can tell, like, okay, well, now all eyes are going to be on the Amanda character.
Yeah.
Is that this is when everyone's invested in thinking, sure, John dies, but is what's going to happen to Amanda? Is she going to be able to carry on
John's legacy.
Yeah, is she going to carry on the legacy? And furthermore, is she going to carry on the series?
Yeah.
Is she going to, like, bring on the Saw 4, or the Saw 5, or Saw 6?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he decided to kill her off because it's a fitting ending with the Saw trilogy, is that almost all the ties are...
All the ties are turned, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of mended, right?
Yeah.
The loose ends are
Yeah,
tied.
yeah, and that's why, another reason why Saw 4 was, like, such a big surprise, like, how, like, who's still doing all these traps, right? And then you find out it was Detective Mark Hoffman, after all.
Yeah, so for me, that's really what made Saw 3 cool. It made it more or less like of an eye-opener, and seeing as it, some people said like, oh yeah, well, I kind of stopped at stopped watching it at Saw 3 because the main character dies. John Kramer dies, and so does his apprentice. But we don't see it as that. We see it as I think like a bold semi-conclusion to the series, because they were still bringing it out, and that's what made it really fascinating to see. Oh wait, you guys are doing more Saws after this? Okay, well, I'm definitely want to tune in to see what direction you guys are going for.
What you guys can come up with, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of things you guys.
Anything else you'd like to say about it, Alec?
About Saw 3? No, really, you've pretty much said everything that was on my mind. Yeah, like, I really thought it was a really interesting story, more unique towards the other two. But yeah, like, yeah, I can definitely see why you end up liking that one the most, or one of the most, for sure. Anyways, alright, so, Earl, what is your fourth least favorite, I guess?
So my fourth favorite, or my number 4 on my list here, I'm going to have to go with Saw 4, which is kind of appropriate. It kind of lines up with the numbers. But we're coming off the heels of Saw 3, if we can go back to that a little bit. Coming off the heels, John Kramer's dead, Amanda Young's dead, a lot of people just in general are dead.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
You know, I think they kind of went into some characters, like the main character ended up being Lyric Bent's Rig, SWAT Commander Rig character. So they went with that angle, and they went also with the Costas Mandalore's character, which was Mark Hoffman, he showed up for like a very short scene in Saw 3, and then they
Yeah.
bring him back and they said like, no, this is probably the guy who's gonna help lead it, right? He shows off, and that's always one of my favorite visuals in Saw 4. That beginning
Yeah.
where they pull John Kramer's flesh down
Yeah.
over his face. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so graphic and it's everything you need in a Saw film. God.
it personified it not necessarily as like a medical drama, but you almost like would have mistaken it at the first four. But yeah, it was a really gruesome opening that really kind of set the pace and the tone for Saw 4 and everything that kind of led into it. So let's go with the B plot first, which I think was really a lot more predominant in this film than I think in some of the other ones. They really kind of mixed up the A plot with the B plot, kind of like half and half. But this one is really predominantly the B plot, and that's following SWAT Commander Riggs' attempt. He's become obsessed with the fact that he can no longer save everyone around him. That's the idea, right? Is that everyone around him is dying, and he can't really do anything about it. But he goes with this obsession that he needs to be able to. He needs to find that solution to it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Jigsaw's ringer. He gets put into his games, and he basically has 90 minutes. He says, you have 90 minutes to, allow so-and-so to kind of help themselves. I think he says it originally. He's kind of cryptic, but he thinks like, oh, it's all for me. This 90 minutes it's my countdown. And it was really sneaky, the fact that he had to do so many other traps. And he's like, so Commander Rig, do you see what I see? Can you feel what I feel? Like all those different great traps that they had instigated in Saw 4. Some of them were a little more, you kind of have to save yourself. Some of them were a little more intricate, like the first one with the Art Blank character where he had to fight the blind guy, or not the blind guy, but the guy who had his eyes, sewn shut.
Yeah.
Fought that. Like a lot of it was a little more to the essence of the original Saw concept, is that you do have to save yourself. But there was, I think, the illusion that it became a little more distorted as to what it was, in a sense, like, oh yeah, everyone will get this equal chance at living. I think the fight scene kind of said one person will have to live, one person will have to die, and they kind of started moving into that with Saw 4, just so they can get an excuse to say, oh yeah, someone is gonna have to die. We are gonna have to see some gore and some blood.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like, that's what I don't like about like Hoffman and Amanda's traps, is that someone has to die. Where with John's traps, not everyone has to die. Like, that's the point. You have to like find a way to survive. That hence face survival to see if you have what it takes. And like I said, with Hoffman and Amanda's traps, like someone has to die. It just doesn't seem right, That's what I noticed too.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
But the really neat thing about Saw 4 was, I think, the A plot. No, I would say it's more like the B plot twist. Was the B plot twist in that one is that all the events that were lining up, Rig was doing everything at the exact same time that Amanda Young and John Kramer were doing. So essentially lined up perfectly. So everything that was happening with Rig was happening at the same time with Jeff Denton. So that was really like one of the cooler twists that really kept me a cliffhanger, because they didn't really do that with any of the other Saws, and you understand why. You don't want to duplicate that kind of success, because because it does get sour after a while.
Yeah, it'll get old. Yeah.
But yeah, it was really interesting that they went with that approach, and that's what made it, I think, all the more addictive as kind of a sequel to what should have been a conclusion of the series, was that they really made it open and say, yeah, it happened at the same time. Not only that, but guess what? We brought in the new Jigsaw killer. We brought in the Mark Hoffman, the killer who's showing in, and I think it's really interesting. I don't know if you've seen the director's cut of Saw 4, but I think in the rated version, the theatrical release, is that you kind of get to see, oh yeah, Mark Hoffman kind of unties himself from the electric chair chap that he happened to be a part. But in the director's cut, Darren Lynn Bousman decided you kind of get to see all the flashbacks and kind of all the choice reels that goes on, all the different scenes that had happened that he kind of puts in as a blotch, and then bammo, I should say, Commander Rig, I think, looks up, and that's when he sees Mark Hoffman standing over him. So I think, in a way, it was kind of a cooler choice to do, because You did get a lot more like unexpectedness, so it does come. The twist just comes in, bam, suddenly, instead of rather it's like, oh wait, is he able to undo himself from his chair? So I think it might have been the sense that Darren Lynn Bousman, the director of First Off 4, realized that, oh, it seems kind of silly if he was in the chair the whole time, but he had complete control over, his predicament. He could tie himself and untie himself. It was kind of cooler to see it that, they left out a blank as how he was able to get out of the trap, and it just show like, oh yeah, he's right there, and I'm the new guy you have to worry about.
Yeah.
And so like I think the A plot we can go with the Jill Tuck.
Yeah,
The-
Jill Tuck's character, yes.
The Jill Tuck was really when she was kind of portrayed, and we kind of got to know exactly who Jill Tuck was in this
John
film.
Kramer's wife.
Yeah.
As you all know.
And another thing with John Kramer is that they decided, well, that was the first chance that Melton and Dunstan got to write in, and they decided, bam, let's just explain the origin of John Kramer. Let's explain what is the reason why he completely flipped out.
And why he does what he does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. Their flashback scenes, I think in Saw 4, are by far my favorite.
Yeah.
Out of all the entire series. And that's why, for me, Saw 4 has a really special place in my heart, because everything, all of the loose ends ended up being tied in the end to make really what was probably one of the cooler of the Saw films. I think it really kind of set itself apart from all the others in terms of everything it tried to accomplish.
Yeah, by all means. I would agree.
Anything else you want to say about the film, Alec?
Software. No, actually, I think you pretty much said everything. Like just like Saw 3, you pretty much said everything I had to say. Yeah, I'd have to agree though. Like Cecil's character, I find was really interesting too.
Cecil was kind of
and it really interesting how they showed that he's the prime example of what John means by taking life for granted, and how like he was John's first victim of his traps.
Yeah.
And I thought he was a really interesting character.
But yeah, I did remember one more thing. We kind of go back to the special agents. This is when all the detective characters had been picked off one by one, right? Tapp, Matthews, Carey, they were all dead, man. It was basically just Hoffman left, and it was weird because that's when that's when
the films, yes.
That's when Strom and Perez come in, and they say, we're suspicious of this guy because he's the last one left, and everyone else but him is basically being killed off.
Yeah.
So there was that suspicion in it, and plus there was, Scott Patterson's fantastic acting in that film was really, I think, one of the best, because he really showed that he could use emotion as a weapon, and he was really great in picking his spots when it comes to in between telling the facts and acting like the totally badass cop that he was.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so we'll go for your, I think, fourth favorite Saw film. So your third favorite Saw film.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So counting down to my number 3 favorite Saw film, I got to go down to Saw 2.
Yeah, by all means, I'd have to agree. That one was really good too.
Saw 2 was really cool in the sense that we kept to the idea of, it's your life. Defend it as you will. You have to fight to survive it.
Yeah. They'll have their own personal traps. It was really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that they were in this barred up house, and I think they all knew that the Saw killer, he couldn't have been amongst their midst, even though she was.
Yeah.
That's the big twist, right? Is that she was, but you still had the perfect example of a locked room thriller. So you did have the perfect example of the locker room thriller with Saw 2, is that you put in a whole bunch of people. They all have, let's say, a sin or a vice that they had executed in the past. So there is reason for them all showing up here. And you decide to put them all one by one. Will they kill each other? How many people will survive? So I think the premise of the main trap was so simple. There's an Aryan virus that's spreading in the air right now, and after a while, it's gonna kill you, right? It'll destroy
Yeah.
your lungs and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so simple, but everything else that was going on in the B plot was it was vast and it was very very interesting. Um, the A plot was really really different from the first one. I mean, if we can take a look at Saw One for a second, Saw One we the A plot there wasn't really much of an A plot B plot except for the fact that it's like oh yeah there's the Gordon and or no, I'm running out of the name. Adam, the Gordon and Adam story was the A plot, and then the B plot was just oh yeah, Gordon's family. That was really it, and then yeah, you put in David Tapp, who was kind of like running in between like both of those plots.
Yeah, like his obsession with finding Jigsaw, hence Saw the video game, where they used him as a story. But we'll get to that later.
So that was kind of like a linear plot, but this one was really weird.
Yeah.
How we go to a plot and boom, opening 20 minutes, we really get to meet Jigsaw for the first time, and boy, do we meet him a lot.
Yeah.
Like we went from the first movie, he was a corpse.
Yeah.
That's all he was in the first film.
He was a big twist character. You didn't see him coming at all.
And now you come on to number 2, and we get to meet a lot of them. We really get to understand kind of, or he explains in his weird way what he does and why, more or less why he does it. It's not completely obvious, but he does loosely explain it. But yeah, you really kind of get to see the inner workings, and because of that, it happened to be, fun fact, Alec, Tobin Bell's favorite Saw performance. Or his favorite film to act in. And that's also one of the really great things, I think, as a whole, and I kind of forgot to mention this previously, is that Jigsaw has a fantastic vocabulary. Yes. I think if you read his lines and you pay attention to what he's saying, it's really colorful to the fact that he never has to swear because he always has a word for everything.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really iconic in Saw 4 is when he does say, like, get the fuck. You heard me.
Yeah,
so
get the fuck out. Yeah, he says to his lawyer.
That's what makes it, like, pop out that much more, and that's what's great about kind of, like, those characters that don't rely heavily on swear words, is whenever they do use a swear word, it pops out that much more. It's like a red flag compared to, say, someone who says, oh yeah, F this, F that, shit this, shit that, kind of like that. But it was really great when you have a character who's so rich with his vocabulary, and then he's playing mind games with arguably one of my favorite characters in the whole series, because to me he felt so misplaced in that universe, but that's what made the character great was Eric Matthews. Eric Matthews really comes off as the character who isn't very doesn't seem to fit in. I mean, Jigsaw had to give him the dumbest game that he can think of. Is like, let's just talk. Can we do that? Is that easy enough for you? Let's just talk, then maybe I'll give your son back.
Yeah, like let's just talk while you're in suspense of what's gonna happen to your son.
So that's really what that's kind of like what the A plot was. Is that you took this dim-witted character who really didn't belong in the Saw series, who looked like he should have been. Oh, he's gonna be in like some kind of rom-com character, right? Where he's gonna try to get his ex-wife, like consolation, and he's gonna get back together with Saw. Oh wait, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about your son. It doesn't matter about your ex-wife. You're in a freaking horror series.
Yeah.
Wake the F up, Eric Matthews. It's time to play the game.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the really interesting thing about the Eric Matthews story, and I think as a whole, Saw 2 is very fulfilling and satisfying as a film because you do have a very good A plot. You do have a very good B plot. I mean, the B plot is, I think, honestly, like one of the best. It's actually probably one of the most engaging.
Yes.
In the entire series, is that you get to see all those people in that house, and you learn secrets from them one by one, and then next thing you know, hey, what is that? Amanda Young happens to be Jigsaw number 2.
Yeah. Great
twist. Perfect. Is there anything else you want to say about Saw 2, Alec?
Like you were saying back on Friday when we were chilling, you said you really thought was cool, or actually what I actually pointed out was that what I felt with Saw 2 was that it almost kind of felt like And Then There Were None.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out you know, that one last person was the killer the entire time. And I
Mhm.
thought that was really creative what they did with that, for sure. All right, so Ro, what is your second favorite?
My second favorite. Now this is starting to get hot.
Yeah, now this is starting to get good.
The
Yes.
countdown for my Saw countdown number 2, I put it at Saw 6. Saw
Yes.
6 to me, what was so fantastic about it, especially so late into the series, was that they really made a 180 in terms of what their product was. We came off of a really terrible Saw film, and they made it into something that was fresh, it was creative, and for the most part, it was original. Sure, there was, one or two of the traps were maybe a little unoriginal. And yes, I am talking about the signature carousel trap. I hated that one.
Yeah, that
Um,
was.
but
Mm.
I think the barbed wire hanging one was a little lazy too. But the respirator trap was really cool. The maze trap was brilliant. The fact that the
Yes.
lawyer acted as a rat in a maze was a great image.
That was really well done. And then she had to cut him out to get the key.
Yeah.
Just add salt.
Yeah, brilliant, because he wasn't willing to do that because he was a very selfish, B plot main character.
Little prick,
And that was also the really great thing that I adore about Saw 6 is that the actor William Easton, I think he started in the series called Regenesis, and it was a showcase. I mean, most of the characters from Saw series are actually all from like showcase television.
The actor
series.
is actually Peter Outerbridge.
That's the actor. But the character is Peter Outerbridge.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh wait, no. Yeah, you're right. Peter Outerbridge is the actor.
Yeah. I was right.
Well played.
Yeah.
So Peter Outerbridge was a really great performance in this film, and that's what made it especially so satisfying when he had his flashback scenes with John Kramer, because they had a really great one where he's it wasn't the party, but it was when he was applying for his insurance, and we had his really awesome monologue about, no, it's not about the money, it's about the principle.
Yes.
And it really kind of, I think that entire monologue really encompasses the fabric that was the Jigsaw modem, if you will, right? It's not only like cherish your life, but cherish the life that you could give to others.
Yes, and another thing I thought about some of the people that were in the traps, his co-workers that were in the traps, I kind of thought, kind of made their characters that much more, to get to know better, because as you can see when they're in the carousel, they're all like, oh yeah, well, we're the most important to your business, almost kind of like saying, in this situation, business is not important, it's your life. And it kind of shows you that these people are, kind of greedy, and it's more business than life. And so I kind of thought that was kind of cool too, how they put that in there too.
Well, I think the really great thing about this one, Alec, in particular, of all the movies, is that the B plot, they just took something that had taken place in the history of man, was that there were some insurance companies that were being really cruel, and they're trying to dodge any of the bureaucracy that came with, we're not going to pay you because guess what, we found this, so we can't insure you in the end. And that's a really cruel business to get into, and that's what made it so great for Jigsaw to pay attention to and want to attack. Was, you guys are doing the complete opposite of what my motto is. So heck yeah, I'm gonna put you guys through the ringer. This umbrella insurance, or as I think they called it, was
Umbrella Insurance.
Yeah,
that was the name of the company. Yep.
Disgusting firm, but that's what made
I know, right?
That B plot really cool. And then the ending didn't, the B plot ending didn't really tie into the A plot ending this time either, but it was so cool in the end. Like the acid syringes, oh my gosh, that was brutal.
That was gruesome.
For me, that's actually one of my personal aesthetic favorites, because it just seems so cruel, especially when the sun comes up and they didn't even know what the trap was or what's going to happen. You just decided, oh, is he going to live or is he going to die? So as soon as he pulls the thing, you get the spotlights on the apparatus, and then it falls down, and they're like, oh my dear lord,
this is gonna be good. This is gonna be graphic.
It was disgustingly beautiful. But as for the A plot, so this one they really tried to concentrate on the fact that it's going to be Jill Tuck versus Mark Hoffman. So one of John Kramer's dying wishes is that he felt that Mark Hoffman had failed him as the Jigsaw killer, or I shouldn't say killer, but as a Jigsaw orchestrator, trap orchestrator, if you will.
Mastermind,
one of the two. But
Jigsaw himself.
but he didn't feel he was suitable, so he gets his ex-wife to say, you know what, just euthanize the guy, man. He's not doing his job properly, and if left unchecked, as really that's kind of like one of the themes of Saw 5 is that he was getting to, oh yeah, he's getting really carried away with all this power that somehow being the Jigsaw, the Jigsaw character kind of enabled him.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see kind of that confliction between those two very, very different sides, how one really spoke more into the name of the compassionate, the sympathetic John Kramer, while one had the delusion of what John Kramer had become, and that's all he knew was that, oh yeah, you got to be in this for the long haul, you got to use the tempered steel, as all those images were from Saw 5, though not very effective, they still, tried to help mold the point, is that the Mark Hoffman character, he just wasn't living his life properly, and yeah, I found a way to rehabilitate people. Screw prison, my system works. So yeah, Mark kind of learns that, but he doesn't understand what being a savior is, and that's why Jigsaw wanted him dead.
Yeah.
So I think this about wraps up Saw 6 for me. Alec, anything else you want to say before we get to number 1?
Saw 6? No, I really have to just go back about the whole son idea.
Okay.
I really like the way they did it. Like, they make you think that the woman and the boy are the son of William Easton. Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. And then you find out what he means by family is it's the family.
The one sister.
Yeah, I know, right? The entire family with one girl. Okay, whatever then. So, and then, and then you find out that the son, who had so much rage and so much revenge in him, that he said, you know what, screw it. Yeah, you know what, you killed my dad, now you're going to burn in hell for it. It's basically like he said in the movie. He's like, you killed my father, now burn in hell, you know? So, yeah, I thought that was really good, too. So, anyway, for the big one, Earl, what is your favorite Saw film of all time?
The favorite Saw film in the entirety of the series, I think we've narrowed it down. Number 1, Saw 1.
100% agreed. Best one of the series.
The original Saw was definitely, I think it came from the key concept was that when Leah Whannell and James Wan made the short film, they wanted to show off, it was kind of like this gritty crime thriller that ended up evolving into a staple for locked room thrillers.
Yes.
And became, it kind of revolutionized it. And sure, I think the first one was classified as horror.
Yeah.
If that's appropriate, well, I think it's the only place where I more or less could really fit, but I think
I don't really find them.
Well, for the film genre, right? Yeah. It's demented. Yes, it makes your gut hurt a little bit,
yeah.
But it's not necessarily scary because I don't, it's not something I worry about. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm in a saw trap. It's not necessarily that kind of scary.
Like it's not really a horror movie. It's a thriller.
It is a thriller.
Like it's like suspenseful and intense, which is what the target for the whole feel for Saw is, and they mastered it really well.
Yeah, within the first one, I mean, that's definitely, I think, the key that really ties everything together, and I think made a lot of the other Saw films successful, and as a whole, the whole Saw series successful, was that they wanted to separate themselves from, say, just a regular slasher horror movie, or say, like, oh, it's a vampire flick. No, it's not. It's something that, locked room thriller. What happens when you put some people in for a while? And yes, I have heard the bastardization that the later the series went, the more it turned into torture porn. So we're just watching people, like lose a bunch of blood, lose their limbs. That was kind of like the bad rep that it ended up getting. I'm not gonna say that that's not fair because it's a fair point to be made. But I don't think you could say that at all for the first Saw at all. It's not torture porn. It's really like well done, especially for the limited budget. They didn't really go for stuff that was gigantic, such as a pendulum cutting down like some guy's abdomen or something. It was very simple with the fact that they had 1, a razor wire room, 2, which I think is one of my favorite, just not concept, not necessarily the delivery, but the concept is that there's a guy, he's got a poison, he's got unlocked what is it, a vault, a safe?
Yeah, it's a safe.
It's a safe. He's got a candle with them. He's filled with Vaseline.
Yeah, there's combinations all over the wall, and he's got to figure out which one is the legit one.
In what's normally probably a pitch black room, so he has to use that candle very sparingly to be able to, save his own life. And oh yeah, one more thing, there's glass all over the floor. So that one was
Very obstacle.
really, really, really cool in terms
Really
of
well
in terms of the presentation. Um, and obviously we can't take away from the most iconic of all of the saw traps in the game, which is the reverse bear trap.
Yeah.
Which became the staple and I think one of the best images and most reoccurring images
Yes.
in the entire Saw series was that bear trap, because they had first used it for the short film. I mean, that was really the trap that got, I think that got like the film out of the short film greenlit. That's what got like a lot of the producers looking at it and saying like, oh yeah, the Berg, Cools, Hoffman production agency there, they really took interest. Like, yeah, let's do that because it's fresh and it's really twisted, and I think there's gonna be a lot of people who will be very shocked by this. So yeah, we kind of went through like some of the B plot. We kind of started talking about it a lot earlier, but let's expand a little more. So the A plot is about these two men stuck in a room together. They claim to have no idea who the other is, but obviously that expands and they realize like, oh no, I was paid to follow you, and so and so. Gordon was the guy who basically handed John Kramer his death sentence, told you I can't operate on you because it's an operable frontal lobe brain tumor.
Yeah, which can kill you.
Yeah, which didn't do anything for it. So the first plot was that you thought these were two people that Jigsaw had an actual vendetta, a personal vendetta for, which felt kind of against the main purpose, is that John Kramer was choosing people who needed rehabilitation, and he really didn't take a lot of, like if you did something against him, sure, he was kind of mad. I mean, he did that with Cecil, but that was really his trial run. So he did learn a lot off of that and said you probably can't let your feelings get in the way of things.
Exactly.
But in this one, it was peculiar because you did have a guy who told him you're gonna die, which obviously later on in the series, sure, you say like, oh, he worked for him, but let's take all those aside. Let's make Saw the main focus, is that, yeah, you did have John Kramer took the guy who said you killed me. You told me that you can't do anything for me. So essentially, you told me I'm a dead man walking.
Yeah.
He put him in a game where he was hoping that he might die, but it wasn't like that at all. He said, Dr. Gordon, the guy in front of you is lying to you and whatnot. He knows you and everything. I've put multiple implements mostly within his reach, because if you look at it, the predominant side of everything that can be done is on Gordon's side to be able to kill Adam, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the stuff.
Yeah.
So when he, I think, like the bullet was on his side, but yeah, the hacksaws were mostly, they were in the toilet by Adam's side, I think.
Yes, they were by Adam's side. Yes,
Okay.
Follow your heart, and
but
follow the heart.
So I think it accentuated that he wanted Adam to cut his own foot off, but it ended up being the other way around. Is that he wanted like Lawrence into doing it because he's like, oh my god, I really need to help my family. So it did have a character who was secretly family oriented, even though like at first he did let his work really get carried away, and he was going through a midlife crisis. That's why he was going out with one of the medical interns.
Yeah, and plus his relationship with his wife was kind of lukewarm. So yeah.
Well, that was the image, but obviously, the idea behind Jigsaw and taking the Dr. Gordon character, it worked. He appreciated his loved ones. He appreciated his life anew. So essentially, the way that I saw it at the Saw ending, and it left it open for discussion, was that, yeah, I think he rehabilitated Gordon. I don't think he rehabilitated Adam. I don't think Adam was supposed to be rehabilitated. I think he just wanted to kill, he wanted him to kill Adam, which was peculiar, but it did make you open your eyes and say like, oh wow, that's interesting stakes. And the bathroom, what they did with it, and especially the aesthetic in the first film, and that's why it's the bathroom is so iconic now, is that it was incredibly well done. It was sketchy, it was creepy, it was everything you needed for like a horror film per se. Now if we can move on to the B plot, kind of the David Tapp story. I say is more of the B plot, and as Gordon is like, oh yeah, I've got my family and whatnot. And kind of take my word back from before, but yeah. So the B plot is really about Detective Tapp, and he's trying to find the Jigsaw killer before like any more stuff happens. And this is really the start of almost the trend of all of them. Is that Jigsaw wants to kill off all the other detectives because he says, "Oh, you're obsessed with finding me. That's your problem." But really, that was all kind of Jigsaw's way of giving himself an excuse, I would say, to be able to kill off everybody.
Yeah.
To kill off all those people who could threaten his capture. But yeah, it did really start with the Detective Tapp, and I think they showed it the best with Danny Glover's performance, which was obviously renowned, or they just used him for the one movie, but he had a really, really solid showing, and everything about this character was not perfect. I mean, say what you will, and especially this is, I think, a known fact, was that Leigh Whannell basically wrote himself as the Adam character and tried to write himself like all the best lines.
Yeah.
But it was still a very solid script as a whole. So like everything that was given from Dr. Gordon's lines to Detective Tapp's lines, they were all really cool. And the actors, Carrie Ewells and Danny Glover, they really pulled through on those lines. So they made it a really effective, what was a probably independent film at the time, which grew and to like a huge expansion where like almost every sequel they got a larger and larger budget to do it, which was really cool, good for them. But I still didn't explain the failure that was Saw 7. Now did it?
True. True.
But so yeah, like as a whole, a fantastic independent film that really the focus was the story. It wasn't really as much as the traps, but what they did with the traps was still really clever and really eye-catching. So, bam, they nailed the dialogue. They nailed the aesthetics, they nailed the concepts, and I do kind of think they nailed the character. If there's anything that was a little bit off, that felt a little more forced in, it was the character relationships. For me, that was really the only weak point, was that I'm not gonna say it's from the acting because that would be contradictory to what I said, but yeah, I think it was the writing at that point where some of the relationships, they felt not necessarily strained, but forced to be glued together. And I felt the only two characters that really had a really great fusion were probably Detective Tapp and Lawrence Gordon.
Yeah.
But other than that, fantastic movie. I really want to give a shout out as well to Michael Emerson. I know he ended up doing he went to television with Lost and now Person of Interest, and he's doing what he's doing, and he's doing a fantastic job as well. But even at this, this was really like a kickoff point for him, and he was it was a stupendous performance.
Zeb Hindle,
from and it was so deceptive too, because they really had you believing that Zeb Hindle, he's a Jigsaw killer.
He's him, yes. And then and then of course, as good as Saw is, it had a beautiful twist ending to show you no, he's not the Saw. He's not Jigsaw himself, and that's one of the beauties about Saw. Those amazing twist endings.
And that was actually, I think, the best thing. And that's what actually sets it apart from the rest of them, is because in the other Saws, you expected a twist, didn't you? Or for most of the time, you expected there was going to be a twist. But in the first movie, because it was the first, that twist ending came out of absolutely nowhere, and that is probably why it was the best shock value, was from the first one's twist ending, when you saw the dead corpse wake up and you found out, I'm the guy the guy you guys were actually trying to look for the whole time. That's what was brilliant. Anyways, Alex, is there anything else you want to say? Because otherwise I think we're gonna wrap it up.
No, actually I think we pretty much just summed everything up now.
Awesome, guys. So thanks a lot for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can comment, say whatever you want if you like. Jeer us if you will, if you think we're amateurish.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. I mean, that's your prerogative.
But negative comments that are a little excessive on being mean and vulgar, we will remove those.
Absolutely. I really don't want to see any swearing, because I think we tried to hold ourselves off. Yeah, I definitely don't want to see any of that. So yeah, thank you very much for paying attention. I know it was a long video, but yeah, hopefully it made you think of something. And for any of you Saw skeptics who still think, oh yeah, it's terrible, it's just torture porn, give it a shot. The A plot and everything about it, it turns from a cool story about a serial, a life the life and times of some serial killer, and then it moves to like, oh yeah, it's a cop drama.
Yeah.
So it is really cool. Even if you really like television, I recommend Saw.
Yeah.
I really do. So I think both of us are saying, yeah, um, go ahead and watch it if you haven't seen it, because it's a lot of fun. And if you don't, well, yeah, fair warning, there's a lot of blood.
Yeah, no, it's they're pretty graphic movies, hence the R rating. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you're all, if you're all watching, like willing to watch the movie, I'm sure you're all of age to see it anyway. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for watching, and enjoy the movies when you watch them.